Europe has great challenges ahead. Accelerating decarbonisation and moving towards energy sovereignty by 2030. This is what the European Repower EU plan establishes, and this is how the different countries are working together. To this end, renewable hydrogen is the great ally, clean and produced domestically. The development of a European hydrogen backbone network with corridors linking supply from producer countries to demand centres will be essential. H2Med will be the first EU renewable hydrogen corridor capable of delivering 2 million tonnes of renewable hydrogen, which accounts for 10% of the projected hydrogen demand by 2030. Driven by the governments of Spain, Portugal, France, Germany, and the European Commission, and promoted by the TSOs of the countries, it was submitted to the European Union's Projects of Common Interest application on the 15th of December 2022. H2Med is made up of two interconnections, one between Celórico da Beira in Portugal and Zamora in Spain, and an underwater hydrogen pipeline between Barcelona in Spain and Marseille in France. It will play a pivotal role in connecting the production capacity in the Iberian Peninsula with demand centres in countries like Germany. With this purpose, the national network projects, also presented as PCIs and part of the corridor as a whole, are progressing in parallel. Developing a hydrogen economy will have significant benefits for Europe. Socio-economic, such as industrial development, innovation or investment attraction. Environmental, such as reducing emissions or improving air quality. And social, because it will help a just transition, employment promotion and the development of local economies. There are many challenges, and using the public-private partnership model, we're taking steps to reach the targets set by Europe. It is renewable and can be applied in all sectors, including those with difficult decarbonisation solutions, such as intensive industry and heavy transport. It is renewable hydrogen. And with projects such as H2Med, in Europe it is already a reality. Hydrogen is Europe. Hydrogen is now.
The strategy that was adopted or issued in 2020, I think is a good starting point. But 3 years later, we have gone so far already. All the main Spanish companies are involved. I mean, this is not only a public project from the Commission and all the member states, which is important to count on the public side, but also the private companies are following and now probably leading with a big impulse, which we find it is very important. Initiatives like the Ideal Initiative, because all the gas network administrators and companies are now changing their chips, the mental chips, to hydrogen. We will still have the gases transition, but we are now making it compatible to change all the infrastructures from gas to hydrogen. Of course, as I was saying, we have some advantages, not because we're more clever, it's just because we have a weather that allows to count on more renewables. We have large amounts of renewables, and we are now investing and developing them to reach our 100% possibilities. But we also have companies that have developed all the technology and the expertise, and one of them is here, a Spanish one, present. We have accumulated a lot of experience for decades in the gas market. We managed to diversify our different sources so that when the Ukraine crisis came, we had already 4 or 5. We didn't depend on more than 20% from anyone, which is now a pattern that we are all trying to follow. things that we worked yesterday on the electricity reform design, long-term contracts, for instance. We've been working on that, and that gets prices down, which is what we, at the end, we want to have to ensure the provision of energy that we need for industries and for homes, for mobility, but also cheaper prices, which is a big problem now with inflation. And so we're working in that field, and the long-term contracts is something where we have good experience and has also worked very well. And Spain has an important industrial park, and our industrial sector is important, which also assures an important demand for the energies, which is also a reason to help us develop further. Of course, our research centers and universities are also very important, and our R&D in Spain in the energy sector is very, very advanced, and I think we have to count on them too, because they are helping on this aim to developing an increasingly efficient and competitive hydrogen economy. And the hydrogen roadmap in Spain designs a strategical framework for our government to reach very ambitious aims. By 2030, our production will be between 2 and 3 million tons of green hydrogen. And by 2050, the Iberian Peninsula, because Portugal and Spain, we are all together in the energy sector, we are really work as one, we will be producing not less than 33 million tons a year, of which 27 million would be to export to our European member states. Of course, and the last but not least, fundamental condition for the success of hydrogen is the existence of a solid and reliable transport infrastructure throughout the whole continent. This we have been demanding for a long time, the interconnection from the Iberian Peninsula with the rest of Europe. We are looking at it now with positive terms. Finally, we will get it. We need to be all interconnected in Europe. Already now, on the green transition at present, until we reach the climatic neutrality. And so I was just supposed to welcome you here at the embassy, but wanted to make a few reflections because this sector is very sensitive for us, and I think we're working well. We were the first ones, I think, to have a ministry of ecological transition where we put industry and Umwelt and environment together in the same ministry. And I think this was a model that is now getting stronger in other countries, I think successfully. I hope that we really manage in the energy sector to move this, and hydrogen will, of course, be the best instrument or one of the strong instruments we will have. But about that, there will be a lot of other speakers that will tell you more interesting and deeper reflections. Thank you very much, and welcome to the embassy.
Regulatory framework. We will now hear the perspectives of the European Commission, as well as the German, French, Portuguese, and Spanish governments, starting with Dr. Franziska Brantner, Parliamentary State Secretary at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Franziska Brantner.
Gracias. Hola a todos. Bienvenue. Merci beaucoup d'être tous ensemble. I have to work on my Portuguese. Dear Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear CEOs and representatives of the private sector here today, allow me, before I go on talking about H2Med, to really thank the Spanish presidency for the excellent work the Spanish presidency is doing. Not only on the energy field, but on so many areas. You're really pushing the agenda, and it's quite impressive. And I think really we have all to owe you a lot for being so, so present, even though you don't have it so easy at home. Thank you for that. So we have, I think, together as Europeans, two goals. The one is to turn our wealth into a wealth that doesn't destroy our environment and our climate, which is an obligation we have all together towards the next generations, towards our kids, towards people on other continents on this planet. So that's the one obligation why we're here all together. But there is a second one that we have as Europeans, and that is economic security and security of supply. And I think that this is also a very important objective when we talk today about H2Med. It is both. It is about our joint goals of a green future, but also about our safe and secure European future and our sovereignty in the future. And if you talk about these two dimensions, it is key that we need to have more energy cooperation, and therefore we're very glad that we managed to work on the energy market design, but also we have seen during the last year how important the energy cooperation is and how much we can rely on each other. And of course, the second part is H2, is hydrogen. It will be a key part of that greener future. We all know it is a market that is still in the making, but it is a market that is in the making. That's the good news. And if we bring those two dimensions together, we know that we need the infrastructure for it. These are the highways of the future, the hydrogen highways that we need across Europe. And Germany is in the center of the European Union. We don't have a lot of wind comparatively to some northern states. We don't have a lot of sun compared to more southern states. But we are in the center, and hopefully we will be able to connect all the dots. That's why in our planning of our hydrogen backbone right now, we're immediately from the beginning planning all the European connections. And I think we are very aware of this responsibility that we are at the heart of making these connections possible for the hydrogen infrastructure of the future. And France is a bit in a similar role, not entirely, but still, it is key when it comes to the infrastructure for the future. And this infrastructure will be a public-private partnership. It's clear that it requires a lot of investments. It requires public leadership on pushing it through and getting it fastly done. And for me, a bit, this European infrastructure, it's also a question of infrastructure patriotism for Europe. Do we manage to build this infrastructure? I think it will be key for us in the future. And the road has not always been easy on this project. Entre amis, en famille, on le sait. But as in good families, if you work out to solve your difficulties, you're stronger afterwards, and you feel even more together and joined up. And I think that we are on this road right now, which gives me a great confidence that we will also able to work faster now on this project as we have in the past. And I think it's an excellent example of cooperation between 4 countries that do have complementarities that allow us to be stronger all together. So thank you to the companies that have been working on the project, even if we were still on a bit of a difficult path, that you have been able to continue working on this important project. And I can assure you that for us it's a very important project. I can also say it from my home state, Baden-Württemberg. It is a very important part. Our Prime Minister was in Spain last week, had a lot of discussions with your companies, with also the government side. And I know that for our powerhouses in the south of Germany, this project is also very important. So, let's make this a joint endeavor. Let's move fast on it so that we can build that market fast. And thank you for all you have been working on this project. Thank you to also our teams in our ministry that are working on this, in your ministry, everybody, and Ministère français pareil. I know that everybody is working on this and we are moving faster ahead. So, obrigado.
Vielen Dank, Dr. Brantner. I would now like to introduce Mechthild Wörsdörfer, Deputy Director General for Energy at the European Commission. Welcome.
Buenos dias, muchas gracias. The ambassador, the state secretary, the ambassador from France, Portugal, and also dear CEOs, Arturo and Manuel. I would like to echo the big thanks to the Spanish presidency. I mean, it's a very, very intense job. I'm coming from the energy policy field. We have daily contacts at all levels. And I think also the success of yesterday's Energy Council in Luxembourg on the electricity market design wasn't an easy task. And we are very happy and very proud that this has been achieved and that tomorrow we start in Strasbourg to continue the trilogues, not only on that file, but overall an excellent job from the Spanish presidency. Today, we are here for another important project, and I would like to also start with hydrogen as a top priority for the European Commission. We need in our 2030, 2050 climate neutral Europe more electrification, more renewables, more hydrogen, and all low-carbon fuels. So I think we have together a big, big, ambitious 2030 framework. We have, at the Commission, presented after the invasion of Russia and Ukraine what we call the Repower EU plan. This is mainly about more energy efficiency and savings. It's about diversification away from one single supplier, and it's about acceleration of clean energy transition. And here, hydrogen, the renewable hydrogen targets for 2030, both domestically and imports of 10 million tons are hugely ambitious. We are aware of that. But we are all making together efforts to make it happen. And that's why we have, on the legislative side, right now also in negotiation, the decarbonization of gas and hydrogen package, which is a major step for renewable gases, for low-carbon gases, for hydrogen in the future. It wants to create a market by 2030 with some rules which are still there to scale it up, but also to give predictability post-2030 for the necessary investments. And I think I fully agree, we need those investments, and we need the demand, we need the push, both, and we can set it via a legal framework to give predictability where we want to go together in Europe. We have also adopted under the Spanish presidency the Renewables Directive, where we have not only high renewables targets of 42.5% by 2030, but also sub-targets for hydrogen for industry and also for transport. So in these sectors, and definitely where we see the biggest demand of hydrogen is the energy intensives. It was mentioned in the video, steel, cement, chemicals, where we cannot electrify, but we need clean hydrogen to produce green steel or other products in the future. We need hydrogen, but we also need the infrastructure. And this is a key point. We have adopted our Trans-European Network for Energy nearly 2 years ago, before the invasion of Russia and Ukraine. And the big priority here are electricity and hydrogen, a bit on CO2 infrastructure as well, and smart grids. So this was a big step. The Parliament and the Council at the time agreed not to finance anymore any gas infrastructure. That was pre-war. But the focus is clear. It's electricity and hydrogen. And here, the interconnection of Spain with France, for example, we have Biscay Bay, which is a top priority for us as well. We give a lot of money on that project of common interest. But we are also preparing right now the list of projects of common interest and the list of projects of mutual interest, which means between a European country and a third country. And it's quite important, that process, because if you are a project of common interest in our definition out of the Trans-European network, it's not only the possibility to get funding, but also it has a priority status. It gives accelerated permitting, which is a key issue for development of all kinds of projects and grids, and it gives regulatory incentives. So we have already looked at all the 180 project proposals on hydrogen, which was a huge, huge number, and we had, obviously, as it's a growing new market, define our criteria, which were not easy, but we did it together with all the stakeholders and in the regional group and involving all parties. And next week, Wednesday, we will discuss with the member states and adopt these PCI list on the 26th of October. I already mentioned the importance of the regulatory framework. We have the decarbonization of hydrogen and gas package. We have also the Net Zero Industrial Act, because we see more and more energy policy going hand in hand with industrial policy. So we need competitiveness and also a reaction from us, EU, to the US on the Inflation Reduction Act. And that one first step is the Net Zero Industrial Act, where we work together with our colleagues. And my last point is, obviously, this H2Med is a great achievement. We very much from the Commission welcome that the 4 or 5 TSOs and the 4 member states are working together. Regional cooperation and the Iberian Peninsula, France and Germany working together, where there is a complementarity when it comes to production, supply, and the demand, which indeed there is a lot of industry demand here for hydrogen. And we think it has a clear potential that all those can happen, and the CEOs and the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding is a great, great step. Very much welcome. We will continue that discussion. We have this high-level group on Southwest Europe where we meet regularly. We want an action plan, and we want to accelerate that work with all the partners. And I think we have also launched a study to look what more can be done from the Iberian Peninsula, which we will publish next month. So the next steps is to get the PCI list adopted or agreed with the member states next week. Then it will be published, and then 24, if you're lucky, the money will flow to those who get the PCI status. So from the Commission, a big thanks. I know it's a lot of work behind to make that happen, also from the colleagues and the technical teams here, from the business, from the member states, and the European Commission is definitely there to support all this important work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mechthild Wörsdörfer, for sharing with us the Commission's vision. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, His Excellency François Delattre, Ambassador of France in Germany. Bienvenue, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you for your kind introduction. So, dear Parliamentary State Secretary, Dr. Franziska Brantner, dear Deputy Director General, cher Mechthild Wörsdörfer, Sie haben viele Energie. Dear Secretary of State for Energy and General Director of Energy Policy and Mines from Spain, Excellencies, cher Ricardo, cher Francisco, dear CEOs and signatories of the MOU, chers amis, it's a great pleasure for my team, Claire Thierry-Ocante, Willy Breda, and of course for me, to be here with you this morning on this very special occasion. And I'd like to thank my colleague and friend, the Ambassador of Spain, for hosting us today. He's one of the best hosts in Berlin, I can say. Let me also express my warmest thanks to the Spanish presidency for its outstanding job. And of course, as was said before, for the agreement reached yesterday on the market design reform. This is indeed a major step forward at a very appropriate moment, and I cannot overstate how critically important it is for all of us Europeans to join efforts when confronted with such a difficult and I would say even dangerous international context, from Israel to Ukraine in particular. So we must stick together and join efforts. The war in Ukraine has generated a major energy crisis. In the long term, it raises the question of how to strengthen our sovereignty and how best to guarantee low carbon energy at the lowest possible costs to individuals and consumers. In addition, the acceleration of climate change, now unanimously recognized by the scientific community, is leading us to step up our efforts to decarbonize our economies and societies. In this context, as was eloquently said before, hydrogen energy appears to be one of the most promising technologies for meeting both energy and climate challenges. Portugal, Spain, Germany, and France have all understood this, and I'm delighted that the private sector has rallied around the signing of the MOU to make the H2Med project, which is particularly important for the European hydrogen backbone, not only a success, but I would also say an example of cooperation between European private companies to help decarbonize our economies. I would particularly like to pay tribute to the consortium's decision to involve OGE, das ist sehr wichtig. France wishes the success of the H2Med projects and welcomes, very much welcomes, the mobilization of private actors in this direction. As we all know, hydrogen can only be developed gradually through the emergence of hydrogen production hubs, their connection to storage infrastructures, and their connection to industrial sites in the regions. In this context, the development of the hydrogen market will be delayed if there is no equal treatment between renewable and low-carbon hydrogen. Much progress remains to be made on this equal treatment, and we must mobilize together in this direction. This equal treatment will indeed be a powerful support for the success of the H2Med project, which we strongly hope for. I would therefore like to reiterate our commitment to the principle of technological neutrality for decarbonized hydrogen, whether produced from renewable electricity or low-carbon electricity, such as nuclear power. Decarbonized hydrogen will help us accelerate the development of hydrogen energy while ensuring to achieve carbon neutrality. All our actions must be taken with this objective in mind. In fact, this is the whole point of the joint declarations made at the launch of the H2Med project on December 9, 2022, between the President of the French Republic, the President of the Spanish government, and the Portuguese Prime Minister, as well as the declaration of the Franco-German Council of Ministers on January 22, 2023. To conclude, I'd like to leave these more technical subjects, important subjects, of course, for a moment, and return to conclude to the importance of cooperation between our countries, whose role is absolutely central in to the emergence of common responses to the crisis and the advancement of the energy transition on a European scale. This event, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, This event testifies to the importance and dynamism of this cooperation. I would therefore like to thank again Enagás, the Spanish Embassy in Germany, and all the co-organizers, Terega, GRT Gaz, Open Grid Europe, Rennes, for organizing this important event. I'm delighted that faced with such a challenge and so much at stake, you have all come together to contribute to the discussion and prepare for the future in a spirit of cooperation serving Europe's interests, values, and ambitions. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. I now invite to join the stage His Excellency Francisco Ribeiro de Menezes, Portuguese Ambassador in Germany. Welcome.
Querido Ricardo, es verdad, eres el mejor anfitrión de Berlín. Thank you all, liebe Frau Dr. Franziska Brantner, querido Ricardo, mon cher François, dear Dr. Mechthild Wörsdörfer, querido Manuel García, all the CEOs of the five companies, Ricardo, Costa. I am also delighted to be here today, and we have to commend all the stakeholders, public and private, which have made it possible for us to be witnesses to such an important step in building a European energy market, a market that provides for reliable, sustainable, and affordable energy while also generating employment, which is very important. And I joined François in, and you, Frau Staatssekretärin, on commending the Spanish presidency. And if they are doing so well here in Berlin, they have to be doing very well ailleurs, in Strasbourg, in Brussels, and in Luxembourg. Enhorabuena. 3 years ago, when I got here and I presented my credentials to President Steinmeier, the echoes of the climate crisis were already very much apparent. And at the time, already CO2 emissions were hitting records, dangerous levels, global warming. And in the meantime, we had to face the pandemic. Successive waves of containment measures in response to the first big pandemic of the globalized era. And thus, at the start of our trio of presidencies, 2020, 2021, together with Germany and Slovenia, we repeated as a motto that the magnitude and urgency of the crisis should not let us lose sight of other challenges such as climate change. And at the end of that year, with the start of the Ampelkoalition, we saw how Germany committed even more to this motto. And I think that we can be proud that collectively the EU made reduction of carbon emissions an integral part of our post-pandemic recovery programs. That was very helpful. This means that on that side of things, the process was moving well. Unfortunately, 2022, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, starting a war of aggression, François has mentioned it. We also anticipated that the environment could be made a victim of the conflict, but we joined forces to enter an accelerated phase of our own energy transition. And the war demonstrated how necessary it was to accelerate it so that our reliance on fossil fuels would be lessened. We were all affected by the increase in energy prices, millions of people in a situation of energy poverty, and this has given us a further push in the direction we are now pursuing. Obviously, after the terrorist attacks by Hamas in Israel, it is not unlikely that further insecurities may arise from our reliance on fossil fuels, much of which is imported from that region. So we have to move in a very quick manner, enhancing energy security, increasing renewable production, and diversifying supply. In Portugal, we started adapting to renewable energies about 2 decades ago, and I am happy to say and proud to say that we are leaders in this field. About 60% of the electricity we consume each day comes from renewable energies. We hope to move it up to 80% by 2026. We have done away with our last coal-fired power stations. We have adopted a climate framework law that pushes for climate neutrality by 2050, vielleicht 2045. We are very much committed to this. And within Europe, with our partners, with our special partners, with the Commission, we have the capacity and the ambition to promote a big change. From fossil energy importers to green energy exporters. That is a magnificent thing. And hydrogen, with its lightness, its versatility, will play a key role. In Portugal, we adopted our own national hydrogen strategy in June 2020. We have been at it for a while. Of course, we had been working with Spain before, first with Miguel, the integrated electrical market, now with gas also, and now externalizing this cooperation to involve la France and Deutschland. The European Hydrogen Backbone Initiative presents a vision of Europe's future in this area. Brussels, we have heard, in a very committed way, has embraced and recognized the centrality of Portugal and Spain as key providers of green hydrogen to the European market. My mind also went back to December 2022 in Alicante, when President Emmanuel Macron, Presidente Sanchez, and Prime Minister Antonio Costa, together with the major players, reached the agreement on H2Med, the Barmar project. And in January, of course, Germany got involved in the project. Extremely important. We are very thankful for that. We know that Germany stands to benefit, but we know also that your input was decisive for the conclusion of the agreement over this project, and we look forward to the day when green hydrogen will be being pumped from the Iberian Peninsula through France into Germany. I conclude by saying that this project, the H2Med, represents a crucial step in the establishment of a hydrogen infrastructure within Europe and for Europe. It shows that Europe can lead the fight against climate change, combining competitiveness and climate protection. The MOU our operators signed today proves that economy and ecology can come together because, as our children would say, there is no planet B. Vielen Dank, gracias, merci, muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Our next speaker is Director General for Energy Policy and Mining at the Spanish Ministry for Ecological Transition and Demographical Challenge. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Manuel García Hernández.
Guten Tag, good morning, buenos días. Dear Parliamentary State Secretary, Deputy Director General, dear ambassadors of France, Portugal, and Spain in Germany, dear CEOs of the TSOs behind this important project. Dear all, good morning to everybody. Thank you for being here today. Let me start by thanking our ambassador, Martínez, for having us here today, for hosting this important event today. I would also like to start by apologizing on behalf of the Secretary of State, Ángel, for not being here today with us. I think we all know her absence is for a good reason. She was until late yesterday in Luxembourg in the Energy Council of Ministers, and I think we all can agree that her absence is well justified according to the outcome reached yesterday, this general approach on the electricity market reform, which is a good example of how, thanks to the flexibility and generosity of different member states, Europe can advance and we can have a good outcome for everybody and for the coming years. So the bad thing, the toughest part of being the last speaker is the impossible task of being original. So I will try to do my best since I had prepared some words, but I can start by saying that I fully agree with all the previous speakers have said. I think we all can say that hydrogen is one of the key pieces of the puzzle for the energy transition. All those who are involved in the energy policy making and these topics, we usually speak about the trilemma of the energy system. We have to, at the same time, maximize 3 dimensions: sustainability, security of supply, very important these days, and also competitiveness. And I think hydrogen is a good response to all these 3 dimensions, because for sure it will help us in achieving our decarbonization targets. For sure, it is a good way of increasing our autonomy and reducing our dependency on third countries. All the hydrogen that we produce domestically will reduce our imports of energy from third countries. And of course, it is, as of today, the only alternative for some industries and sectors where decarbonization is more difficult. These hard-to-abate sectors and industry, renewable hydrogen seems to be the response for those. As the Deputy Director General has mentioned, the European Union, the European Commission, the Parliament, the Council, we are working all together with member states very intensely in new regulations, in strategic frameworks. This poses also a significant challenge. We have to achieve these targets in the coming years. And I think the final target and objective will be to create this hydrogen market, which currently is non-existent. But we can create it, and we need to create it. How? Firstly, we need to foster renewable hydrogen production. In Spain, we are promoting this public-private collaboration. We are supporting investments with our recovery and resilience facility. We have already allocated 600 million euros, and we are expecting to extend this allocation in another 1.6 billion euros in the coming months with the addenda to the recovery facility. We are observing a huge appetite from the private sector in Spain. As you know, we have our roadmap. Our ambassador mentioned that earlier, with our target of 4 gigawatts of electrolyzing capacity in 2030. But today, with the revision of our National Energy and Climate Plan, we have multiplied this target by almost 3, reaching 11 gigawatts of electrolyzing capacity in 2030. Production is important, but we also have to focus on the consuming and the demand side. We are happy to see that we are approving relevant targets for hydrogen consumption in transport and industry under the Fit for 55 package, and this will foster, obviously, demand pushing for its production. But we also have to work on the competitiveness, the price of this hydrogen. As we all know, this green hydrogen is not yet competitive vis-a-vis the traditional fossil fuel-based grey hydrogen. But this initiative of the European Hydrogen Bank, together with others, this could be a very important step forward in order to bridge this competitiveness gap between green and grey hydrogen. In general, I think we can say that the EU and the member states are working well together on supporting hydrogen production, consumption, the technology development, the training programs, but there is still one missing piece in this puzzle to create this real market, which is transportation and distribution of hydrogen. We know that no market is possible if goods and services cannot be physically exchanged. And for that to be possible, we need transnational infrastructures like this H2Med project. And we also need not only this transnational project to be a reality, but also we will need to enable the injection, storage, buffering, transportation, and distribution of hydrogen from the places where it is produced to the places where it will be consumed. So the political support to this project that was expressed at the highest level by our political masters less than 1 year ago will take a next step, very important one in the coming days, when the voting of the next PCI list will take place. And hopefully all these H2Med projects and the rest of the national projects connected to it will be included in this list and will receive the support in the coming years from the financial facilities. H2Med, with this an estimated cost of 2.5 billion, is expected to be operational in 2030 and will be capable of transporting 2 million tons of green hydrogen per year from the Iberian Peninsula. This will represent approximately 400% of the current Spanish hydrogen demand and 10% of the total hydrogen consumed by the EU by that date. This means that this project is set out to allow Spain and also Portugal, Ambassador mentioned this, to become for the first time in our history net exporters of energy, of green energy. So it's a key part of this roadmap for enabling transport of renewable hydrogen within Europe at competitive prices to feed industrial consumers who are seeking for this decarbonization. And this is necessarily an European project. I fully agree with the title chosen for this event. This meeting is a great opportunity to show this European dimension and how we can cooperate together. And today we will be able to exchange views on the challenges and opportunities that we are facing ahead. In summary, I think this is the best example of cooperation. I want to finish by thanking all the TSOs, especially for the hard work they have done until today to get here today, and congratulate them for this successful outcome. And obviously, I look forward to listening to the coming roundtables with experts on the industry. Thank you very much. Dankeschön.
Dr. García Hernandez, thank you very much. Looking ahead, I also think that Spain and more generally Iberian Peninsula can become important hubs for green energy in the European Union. Having heard the political perspective, let's now talk about the H2Med hydrogen project itself. And we have the perfect panel to take us through the project and its potential. Please help me welcome to the stage, again, Dr. Arturo Gonzalo, CEO of Enagás, Thierry Trouvé, CEO of GRT Gaz, Dominique Mocli, CEO of Terega, Rodrigo Costa, CEO of REN, and Dr. Frank Reiners, CFO of OGE. Dr. Gonzalo will moderate this part of today's event. Dr. Gonzalo, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Guten Tag, good morning, buenos días. First of all, let me express our gratitude to the Embassy of Spain in Berlin, to Ambassador Ricardo Martínez, and to the Embassy team. Thank you very much. You've been key to making this event possible. Thank you also for the authorities that have opened this event with very substantial contributions. I think that what we've heard from State Secretary Brantner, the Deputy Director General Wörsdörfer, Director General Manuel García, and the ambassadors of France and Portugal have very clearly set the scene for our conversation today. Thank you for everyone following this event here in the embassy and via the streaming. Es ist uns eine große Freude an einem für uns so wichtigen Tage hier in Berlin zu sein. Well, vielen Dank. And thank you to my colleagues, Thierry Trouvé from Enagás, Dominique from Telega, Rodrigo Costa from Rennes, and Frank Reiners from OGE, for being with us today, representing this joint endeavor that H2Med is. I think that the main elements have already been presented. Let me just make a few opening comments for this panel, and then I will address the questions to my colleagues. Well, I think it's very clear that after the invasion of Ukraine, Europe has accelerated its response to two challenges at the same time, which are security of supply and decarbonization. These are the two sides of the same coin for us. This means making Europe possible to achieve a strategic autonomy based upon decarbonization and addressing the climate challenge as well. And it's been already been said that this has to be done through cooperation. And what we are presenting here today is, as the motto of the event goes, this is an example of European energy cooperation. So we are 5 TSOs working together. Very good piece of news today is that OGE is joining this group of TSOs, helping to bring together supply and demand, the production and the consumption of green hydrogen in Europe, starting in Portugal, Spain, through France, and reaching Germany on time. I think this message is very important. This message is very important for German consumers as well, for hydrogen producers and hydrogen consumers. And the ambition is very high. Our ambition is no less than being to transport 10% of the green hydrogen consumption that REPowerEU envisages for Europe in 2030. So we believe that to make REPowerEU a reality, we need to make H2Med a reality. And this is our commitment today. We are putting in place all the efforts necessary to have H2Med operating in 2030, and we have the institutional and the political support for that. So that would be my starting point, that it is possible and that we are going to make it happen doesn't mean that it's easy. This is really a big challenge. So I would like to start by asking my colleagues, which is the role that you envisage for H2Med in addressing the energy challenges in Europe, but which are the main obstacles? How can we overcome that? And are we going quickly enough? So if we go in a geographic route, we can start with Rodrigo Costa of Rennes, and we go to Dominique, Thierry, and Frank.
Thank you, Arturo. Well, I think first of all, it's good to be here. We came a long way already. I think Arturo deserves a lot of credit for all the push that we have been doing, and I think we are talking here about building a key infrastructure that without that infrastructure there will be no market. You know, this is not just about transporting the hydrogen to the tip west to the east. This is really about facilitating the creation of a new industry, because I think green hydrogen is necessary for energy generation, is necessary for industry, and I think it has a role that it will not, nothing will happen without this type of infrastructure. And then I think the reason is easy to explain. Roadblocks, challenges. I think there is a role for us. which I think we are showing here today, that we are committed, we are together. We have our teams spending a lot of hours in terms of engineering, in terms of economic studies. We want to make sure that we develop something that will make sense for every country, for every population. But I think, it's obvious that we need, political support to get this done. Europe has a major role on making this happening or not. There is no way we can afford to do it by ourselves. Challenges, I think, I see as a key challenge the fact that we don't have everybody on the same page in terms of hydrogen. Hydrogen, it's old technology with new challenges. It's very hard to manage the molecule of hydrogen. We all know that, but it's possible. There is a lot of innovation happening. There is a lot of commitment, and we need it. But for this to happen, we need to have clear policies. We have to have a good vision for what we want to do, and on this topic, we need to bring in the regulators. Regulators need to understand what we're trying to do, and regulation needs to happen to enable us to develop these projects. Licensing on the environment side is also critical. I think we all have this, objective. We know it's not easy. This will have an impact on the nature, for sure. But we are here to try to minimize the impacts and find good solutions. But I think, in a nutshell, a lot of challenges, but we can make it.
Indeed. Thank you. Obrigado, Rodrigo. So, Dominique.
Yes, just to answer your first question, what does H2Med and Barba bring us? We are building a new solution for the energy system. So it's bringing hydrogen cheap enough to be used in enough quantity in order that it makes sense for the market. And from origin, that gives us more sustainability on the long term when we speak about Europe. It's a complex story. It needs to start by something. Countries have started by local ecosystems, by hydrogen valleys, etc. It makes sense. It allows technology to grow up, etc. But it will make sense globally if we want to meet the targets of 2050 with neutral, carbon neutral neutrality, if we are able to show that there is a system behind that. And for this system, we also need to start by something. H2Med allows us to start concretely to build something which we will assess with the market, and it's our role to propose a solution to our final customer, the one that are connected to our grid, so the existing grid, but potentially the next grids tomorrow, a solution which is green, reliable, sustainable. So, just to say, it's a starting point, but it's vital. It's not necessary. I would say it's vital. If we do not start by this point, we'll never go to something which is reliable on the longer term for industry. Industry, at the end, it's like digital. They do not know where the digital comes from. So they are infrastructure, but the information is there. Tomorrow, hydrogen should be a molecule that is there. And for that, there will be local production. There will be centralized production. There will be big flows. H2Med with 2 megatons, with flows coming from areas where cheap hydrogen will be built, manufactured, coming also in a direction which is one of the direction of the hydrogen. There will be other pipes coming from everywhere, but it's one of the sustainable solutions for the future. So it's our meaning. What I can say is that in the region we deserve, the idea of H2Med made industry change their mind. So they have rethought the way they can envisage the way they produce tomorrow. Without H2Med, I think they would not have made that. They would probably have stayed the position they have, and in the urgency, it's important just to have the push. Regarding difficulties and challenges, there are plenty, but it's also a role of the project that we will run all together to go step by step and put the various problems on the table. Of course, production will be one of the questions, and it's why we are all launching our call for interests in order to see where productions will go, and it's important that also on the consumption side we have the German colleagues coming. The way it will be financed, the initial investment, we all trust it will work at the end, but at the beginning there is a model to launch. We will have to discuss this model, so it's fine. It's the right time to discuss that. And then there will be all, let's say, technical, but we are there just to try and to make it progress.
Thank you, Dominique. Merci beaucoup. Thierry.
Well, I will like to start by the end, and the end is Germany. And I will share with you that the fact that I think that the fact that OG joined the partnership is very, very important. Why that? And we are very happy of that. Why that? First, because, and Dr. Franziska Brantner said it, Germany will be at the center of the European hydrogen. That's the first point. The second point is that we have a very long partnership between OGE and GRTgaz for decades. Trustful, fruitful partnership, and this is very important. We are also involved in Germany, since we are, through our subsidiary, GRTgaz Deutschland, one of the German TSOs, and we are working, of course, with OGE as well on the future Wasserstoff-Kehrnetz, where we will take a part of it, and the connection between the Hercules project in Germany and the Hyphen project in France that will connect Marseille to the north of France and to the German border. So we are more or less copy-paste what we did in the natural gas business with this interconnection between our two countries in the new hydrogen business. So I will not repeat that H2Med and especially Barma is a groundbreaking initiative. I think everything has already been said. We are fully committed to the success of the project. What maybe I would like to add is that it will bring to the French industry competitive hydrogen, of course to the German industry as well competitive into hydrogen. Another point which has not been touched is also that it will connect the Iberian Peninsula to the storages in France and in Germany. And this question of flexibility and hydrogen storage is absolutely key for the success of the energy transition, not only hydrogen, for the energy transition. It's not only me who says that, but also my colleague from the electric French TSO that says we need to have this access to the storage of hydrogen, big quantities, just to help the electric system. So I really think this is a key point. Now, coming to the question of the difficulties, I would first mention that the main obstacle for me was yesterday, but it's now cleared off. I think we need to have cheap hydrogen, we need to have cheap electricity, and so we need to have visibility on electricity market. So now it's done, okay. Then we have of course the question of the financing of the project, and probably I think we need to adapt the European tools, maybe to increase a little bit the CEF envelope, maybe also to adapt the hydrogen bank and maybe the new step regulation to enable to help the infrastructure project. Well, I think if we have that, we will be okay to have a full success in the project.
Merci, Thierry. Frank.
Yeah, colleagues, many thanks. Firstly, I can absolutely underline what you have said, and I'm absolutely glad that I'm allowed to sit here and were able to join this exclusive club as OGE. Yeah, Arturo, you asked about obstacles, and I'm convinced we all know a lot of obstacles we have encountered along the way to promote hydrogen. But I must say I'm very positively surprised because some weeks ago, Thierry, we had a very pleasant meeting in Paris where you presented to us the idea of Barma and Hyphen and the pipelines through France, and we had very, very good discussions. But to be honest, as we traveled back, we were a bit skeptics. We know about it's not always easy with the connection, and may take some time. And that we now sit here and have also this political support also from Brussels, Mr. Wörsdörfer, as you have pointed out. That's a big surprise for me, because we always say we are slow in Europe, and partly it's unfortunately also the case. But here you really moved fast and got this political support. And therefore, yeah, I mainly want to focus on this positive side, that we are allowed to sit here and maybe today not on the obstacles.
Okay, thank you, Frank. But we are very aware of the obstacles and we are working hard on them. And I think having 5 TSOs, such as the one that are in front of you today, it's also a great source of technical cooperation to address those different challenges. But it's true that having the interconnections is not enough. I mean, you need to bring the molecules to the interconnections, move through them, our countries, our networks, to reach eventually the final off-takers and consumers. So a lot of things have to be done at national level to make this corridor feasible and operational. So my second question would have to do with that. What are we doing at national level? We are not on the same page, as Rodrigo said, but we are trying to work very much aligned to make sure that when in 2030 the H2Med is operational, our national parts of the grid are already there. So that's very important. What are we doing at national level to make this corridor possible and to have all building blocks fitting together from 2030 onwards? So starting also geographically, I look at Rodrigo.
Well, I think what we are doing and what we need to keep doing, first is making sure we have collaboration with the official entities. And here I am talking again, regulation is important. I think the environment agencies are very important. People need to understand, all the process. And we even were discussing just a few minutes ago the need to create tools to communicate to the, to the end consumer, to the industries, to the academia, making sure that we increase the knowledge about hydrogen overall. I think this is going to be key for us. We are now facing something new in Portugal, which is we are being hit by activists. They are destroying property, they are protesting in the streets, they are painting, the walls, the cars, the events, and we need to do better explaining that this is important, this is positive for the environment, and as we already said before, the energy transition needs to happen, and we all must work. I think one of the things we are doing now in Portugal, and we are very active, is trying to understand and trying to explain how industries can move to hydrogen. We have to get the collaboration also of the companies who are manufacturing equipment. Generation can move towards hydrogen. Ovens can move, industrial ovens can move to hydrogen. I think we need to make sure all these stakeholders understand better. I think we have a big challenge, and we have to do more than what we are doing, and for sure better.
Thank you, Rodrigo. So this is not just a matter of hardware, but a matter of software as well, and working on the public perception of all our challenges. Then when those molecules are coming from Portugal, they are coming into the Spanish network. And in that regard, I would just highlight two building blocks that are already going. One is the update of the PNIEC, as Director General García said, with an ambition of increasing electrolyzers capacity to 11 gigawatts, which is going from 4 to 11. This is very material. Being able to supply the national demand, but creating a surplus for export purposes, as it was said. That's very important. There is a huge effort for renewable electricity generation behind that. So the Spanish government plans are addressing those needs. And we are the ones that are collaborating in these initiatives to make that hydrogen market in Spain a reality, and we are doing a number of things. The most relevant is the launching of a call for interest for the first axis of the Spanish hydrogen backbone. We launched this call for interest last September the 14th. It's open until November the 17th. We are just at the middle of it. It's calling a lot of attention and a lot of engagement. We have the support of more than 90% of the value chain of hydrogen in Spain, more than 95% of the current producers and consumers of grey hydrogen. So we think it's going to give us a very clear map on the necessity of infrastructure for the whole hydrogen value chain in Spain. We have included also ammonia, oxygen, and CO2 in our call for interest to cover the value chain of the derivatives and carriers such as ammonia and methanol. So we think this is going to be very important to have a clear view on the demand and also to act as a catalyst. As Dominique said, this initiative is being transformational in itself because it's calling the attention of the actors in the value chain, helping them to look at hydrogen as a potential solution in a much more realistic way. We've already put in place the warranties of origin system, which is key also to accelerate the interoperability of warranties of origin systems within Europe, which is going to give confidence to the different actors in the value chain. So we are also doing our part in close cooperation with our neighboring TSOs in France. First of all, Terega, Dominique.
Yes, for France, I would just insist in two elements which are key and that should not be misinterpreted by the others. The French government is very much supporting hydrogen development on production and for decarbonization. It should be seen as this is local things and it's not connected to it. But it's a start. As I said yesterday, we need to understand how to produce a lot, etc. So for me, it's a good sign from the government just to support that. Decarbonization, as I said before, decarbonization, we have areas to decarbonize. We have focused on a certain number, 5, let's say the most important. They will need cheap hydrogen to decarbonize. So they will need us. So for me, all of that is going the right direction. The second element I wanted to underline is the support of the French government on the project that we propose. So, of course, Barma, I find is supported. ISO is also supported, so the project we have in the southwest. And it's supported to the European Commission, saying it's part of the solution instead of storage. There is a capacity of 40% of all the storage that we can implement in saline caverns in France. So the elements to push the program and the support of the French government to make this project in the PCI list is really just because it's really connected to the problematic. Well, just to say that in fact positions are sometimes a little bit different, but I think the dynamic is the same.
Thank you, Dominique.
Okay, to complement what Dominique said, I would like to say that it's already happening in France, in fact. We launched a public consultation in 2021, and we are now working in different areas in France, around Dunkerque, around Marseille, in the east of France, and we have now identified several projects, let's say around 5 projects of local systems, small systems to start, but it is already starting with the help of the future consumers, the future producers of hydrogen. The first system that will be, we will take the final decision of investment, final investment decision before the end of this year. It will be at the French-German border. So it is already happening with a lot of support from the industry. As Dominique said, I think that we have some homework to do in France, because, as he said, the strategy for hydrogen issued a few years ago was focusing mainly on the production. Now we have to add something about the infrastructure. And I would like also to add the question of the regulation. We will have soon a directive at the European level. The trialogue is by the end of, so it will be done next year. We have to transpose it in French law, and I think there is a key issue, which is the risk sharing. And I am very much impressed of what our German colleagues are doing. Not only the German colleagues, but the German government also, because they are really inventing something that can create the good condition to enable these kernets, kernets, yes, in Germany. I think we have to take inspiration from that model. That it is also interesting to see what it's going on in the Netherlands, where there is another solution to the same question, and I think that we have to work on that also in France to be on time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So you were addressed directly, Frank. What are you doing in Germany?
Yeah, Thierry, you mentioned that already. So I think what is common sense in Germany is clear. We need hydrogen to achieve our decarbonization targets. That's crystal clear. For the industry, maybe also for power generation, maybe in the heat market. And it's also clear that we have to import most of this hydrogen from regions where you have more wind and more sun, like the countries where you sit here as representative next to me. So that's very clear, and therefore we embarked on a process with the government and the regulator some months ago to achieve 2 steps. And the process is still ongoing, but we are very optimistic to finalize it somewhere in the first quarter of next year. The first one is the kernnets or core grid, which you addressed already, Thierry. So we have proposed as TSOs. So in Germany we are a bit more fragmented. It's not only one TSO, some more. We have proposed a core grid of around 10,000 kilometers, which connects the main import corridors to the neighboring countries, whereof the French-German connection is one of the most important ones, of course. And these corridors are then connected with the industrial areas in Germany, in Bavaria, North Rhine-Westphalia, Baden-Württemberg, and so on, also in eastern Germany. This grid is currently being checked and analyzed also by the regulator, if it's necessary, if it's over-dimensioned whatsoever. And we are in good hope that we are now in a good process that this will be finalized by the end of the year. The second important column is, of course, the financing topic. Because at the beginning you build a grid which costs some billions, but the first one to connect will not pay the whole bill. So that's clear. And therefore, we need at the beginning a solution how to finance that. And there we are also in good exchange with the government. There is in Germany the so-called DENA model, which you also have cited, where at the beginning we get some support. We get support from the government to cover the financing gap. And later, if then the ramp up of the hydrogen is successful, this gap will then be amortized at a later stage, so that at the end then we have a proper grid available. And so there are still some discussions ongoing, but process is going okay. And I think first quarter of 24 we will have a solution there, and also the legal conditions and regulatory conditions.
Thank you, Frank. I think it's shared by everyone that Germany is taking very interesting approaches to some of these challenges. And if you would like to know more about that, you are lucky, because in the next panel we are going to know more about those approaches to solving these issues. So let me express my gratitude to my colleagues. It's a huge pleasure to work with all of you, and I think this is an exercise of learning together to solve problems together. So thank you very much. Thank you. You can take these seats.
Thank you to the five. Thank you very much to the 5 TSOs for sharing their perspectives and for their contributions. The H2Med project is all about providing European markets with the much needed clean energy. So let's take a closer look at the domestic hydrogen market here in Germany. And I would invite to join me on stage Dr. Timm Kehler, Chairman and CEO of Germany's leading gas advocacy group, Zukunft Gas, and President of the European Gas Vehicle Association, Miguel Ángel López Borrego, CEO of ThyssenKrupp, Stefan Dohler, CEO of EWE, Dr. Philipp Steinberg, Director General for Economic Policy at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action, and Christina Haverkamp, Managing Director at DENA, the German Energy Agency. And this part will be moderated by Dr. Timm Kehler. Timm Kehler, over to you.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. And yes, I'm very pleased to discuss the key question, how the German hydrogen market will develop in the light of the current development and, of course, facing this remarkable development that we are able to celebrate today with the development of an inner-European connection. And I'm very happy that Ambassador Martínez started his opening words with a reference to the year 2020. And from my perspective, from our perspective, I think this was really not only because it was the starting of one of the key crises that affected us, but it was also a pivotal moment in energy policy, because in this year we saw the European hydrogen strategy, we saw the national hydrogen strategies in Germany, in France, in Spain, in Portugal, and this was really the basis for all the discussions that we're leading today. It marked the point in time when I think there was a common understanding, a consensus that we need more than green electrons, that we need green molecules also to pursue our goals. And me coming from a long history in the hydrogen field, this also marked a point in time where hydrogen was understood as a systematic element for energy policies, not only as a fuel for cars or other small areas. It was an integral element for changing the shape of our energy landscape. And the signal that came from Europe, I think, was so strong that we now are seeing a global trend towards hydrogen, which is, I think, a quite remarkable development coming out of many discussions that the industry and policymakers have led with each other. And I think this year might become 2020 equally important to Europe as the year when the iron and ore community was founded and was a building block for the European community, because this was the starting point for free trade in Europe. And this is what I want to discuss with my esteemed and distinguished guests today. We are now looking at an infrastructure that is hopefully being built, and we see the great developments towards it. But the key question, of course, is we need to fill these pipelines. We need to bring supply and demand together. And I would like to start with the key market actors to discuss their perspectives on the future developments of the hydrogen market. And I'm very happy to have with me Mr. López, who is the CEO of one of the leading industrial and technology companies here in Germany, ThyssenKrupp, who is looking at the hydrogen field from different angles. So what is your view on what's happening in Germany and, of course, in Europe?
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, great initiative to have this meeting here, and thank you for the invitation. Very pleased. The second thing is demand is not a problem. And we in ThyssenKrupp, we have basically two paths around green transformation. We are in this respect certainly unique, because on one hand side we have to transform one of the industries that's generating most CO2 emissions. We all only account for 3% of all the CO2 emissions in Germany, so 3% with our steel manufacturing. So we have to transform the industry to get green steel on one hand, and on the other hand, we are on a second path where we can contribute to the decarbonization of industries, because we are producing hydrolyzers, we are having ammonia plants, we can build ammonia plants, we can build e-methanol plants with our segment decarbon technologies. At this point, I would like to thank, first of all, Franziska and Mechthild for your great intervention during summertime, because we initiated the investment in one, we call it direct reduction or machine, if you wish, replacing one blast furnace. And this is a big investment, around 3 billion, where we can get 2 billion from the German government in order to support this green transformation. And that was a very professional work during summertime between the European Union, BMWK, so the German Wirtschaftsministerium, and our teams in steel. This is important because we need, as of 2028, 140,000 tons just for one replaced blast furnace, and we have 6. 140,000 tons. That's the reason why I think the demand is not a problem, because in 2030-31 we will need 300,000 tons of hydrogen. And with this, I would like to stop here.
So this would be an element, an important element, of course, in the demand side. But Germany is, of course, big industry. Germany is also a small and medium Mittelstand, and I'm very happy to have with me Stefan Dohler, CEO of one of the leading utilities here in Germany, and with a very special focus, of course, on the Northwest, where we have a lot of small and medium companies. We have also in your company a distribution grid, which is linked to the TSOs, and we see a lot of action going on in terms of building up renewables. Wind is one of the key sources, and of course at the coast we see new developments with energy supply. So how does this all unfold to you as a regional player in this market?
I always say we're like a bit of 10 years ahead of the rest, you could say, because a lot of things come together because of our geographic situation. So we have a lot of offshore infeed renewable, we have own wind, very much so. So on balance over the year we have more infeed than total consumption in our area. So we are more than 100% renewable if you want. We have some unique features that we have large underground salt caverns. So we have very large storage options. So we own roughly 10% of the total German storage volumes. And therefore we said, okay, we need to connect that, and have also proposed an integrated approach. So to ramp up a total system. So production of renewables, because that makes sense in our region, then production of hydrogen in our region, because we have the very high res production, but then also connecting it to transport and to storage. We have import terminals that are planned in our region. Enagás has, so to say, just submitted or has just taken a stake in one of the LNG terminals that could maybe be converted. That is basically in our area. And of course, our key part is also then beside that to connect it to the customers, because we are a distribution company as well. So we don't see the distribution in the residential heating sector. That's not what we believe in. It's just too expensive and too rare. It's much more a feedstock and an energy supply and a support for industry mainly. So that's where we focus. But the distribution grid has also high pressure pipes. So we always think it's the small pipes towards the households, but it's connecting the industry from the TSOs. And therefore we see a key role also in making sure that this is facilitated. We have very, very positive feedback from the industry in our region. They all say the same. So it will be for a long, long time basically a product in high demand. Are we fast enough in implementing it? I'm afraid not. So I cannot so to say, praise the EU at the same pace, because we have also submitted for IPSAI projects, and we wait for 1.5 years, and we always hear mañana. And I learned since we're in the Spanish embassy, that doesn't mean tomorrow, it means not today. So unfortunately, we hear mañana since 1.5 years. So we hope we are now, so to say, on the finishing line soon, because the funding would then support that. We did that as an integrated European approach, and therefore, just connecting to the topic of today, I think the integration that we will need. One of the success stories of Europe is the integrated energy market. And I think we can rely on that. We always find a common solution, and today is, I really say, a prime example of another initiatives to go towards the European integrated energy market. And I can also say towards the German government side, so to say, I think there's a very, very strong and a very high dedicated support that we feel and receive from there. So I think we have all the ingredients.
Mr. López said that demand is not an issue. Do you get the same feedback from your customers?
Yeah, they actually, I mean, we will produce with our initiative around 40,000 tons a year. And you will just like breathe it up. Yeah? We talk to ArcelorMittal, your competitor. We talk to Salzgitter. We talk to Georgs Marienhütte. We talk to mid-scale industries, paper industry, breweries, whatever. They all want to get green, and they need a lot of gas, and they need to green it. So Dow Chemical is in our region. They today consume a huge amount of grey hydrogen.
Dr. Steinberg, you have been in a pivotal role last year with your relentless work and your team together. I think we wouldn't have managed the crisis in such a good way, and the German landscape would, particularly in the field of energy, would look differently. Your mission, however, is a completely different one. You have the task of transforming the energy system. So what is your perspective on the crisis as a potential catalyst for accelerating the transformation that we're all facing?
Well, I would say at least, I mean, maybe not in all aspects in the short run, but in the long run, I mean, the crisis, of course, is a catalyst in order actually to accelerate transformation. I mean, if we have learned one thing from the crisis, that is that we need to diversify our energy sources. And that's what we are doing. That's what we are doing with our actually gas intake, with our LNG and FSRU terminals. We are actually building also now in order to implement what some call the hydrogen economy. At least it is one pillar of this transformative economy, consisting of obviously the rollout of renewables, what we are doing at very high speed, and we are speeding it up even more. Of course, we need to take efficiency measures, and then the third pillar is, of course, the hydrogen pillar. And there, it has been mentioned, in Germany, we are actually at very high speed and simultaneously on the legal field, and in practice, we are actually rolling out this core network, this core grid network, which will be the first, let's say, the core network, the core hydrogen network, until 2032, and then there will be a second stage where we will already start in 27, where we will actually implement demand-driven planning, as you all know it from the gas sector. So basically, I mean, this is really of very high importance, and really the crisis really has showed that energy is, I mean, it's a central source of security. It's a security matter. You know that Germany has actually, we have just initiated a national security strategy, where actually it's a broad concept of security, and energy security is an important aspect. And then, of course, but we need obviously a core network with all the offtake, and I would say demand is not the question. If the regulatory and support framework, of course, is correct. I mean, you mentioned it yourself. I mean, we supported you quite importantly, and we need to continue doing that. We are rolling out this carbon contracts for different concept. 20 billion euros have been earmarked for that at this moment in time. It will be further increased. So we have a supportive, very strong supportive framework. H2 Global is another important instrument for the international aspects. We are building the infrastructure, and of course, together with the European Union and the Commission, actually we are finalizing the regulatory framework. And once this is in place, then we really can get going. And of course, last words, we need the infrastructure, also like the European infrastructure, because obviously Germany will have to import the very vast majority of our offtake. We
estimate that in 2030 we will need 90 to 130 terawatt hours of hydrogen, and that will obviously increase up to 2045, up to, we don't have any official figures from the government, but there are estimates reaching between like 500 terawatts up to a 4-digit number. So there will be an important demand in Germany, and we are stimulating that with our support programs, with the regulatory framework conditions, and of course with the infrastructure.
I would like to come back to the core network. The announcement was made in summer, and from what I was able to perceive, this really has created an impact in the industry, not only in Germany, but in Europe, actually internationally, that Germany is pursuing this action. Can you give us a quick update on the status, what's currently in the making there?
Well, in our energy legislation, we have introduced like the basis characteristics, what this core network actually has to do, the performance criteria. That is basically it has to actually be an integral part of the European hydrogen network. It has to actually link the important industrial clusters, our electrolyzers, and then very important, our H2 ready power plants. You know that since we are phasing out nuclear and coal more or less at the same time, we need those flexible power plants that they will use hydrogen from 2000, according to the Commission, from 2030 onwards, and therefore they have a very high capacity. So this core network, based on these criteria, which are not even, they are just legal propositions, but we are working together in very good cooperation with our TSOs. They have already modeled like a core network based on those criteria, length of approximately 10,000 kilometers, linking all those industrial clusters I've mentioned, and of course the import points from France, from Norway, from Denmark, possibly a south corridor as well. And we will, I mean, the TSOs will hand in the official application very soon in this autumn, and then the rollout can start, because we are also in the process actually of putting in place what we call a hydrogen acceleration law. A little bit like some of you might know the LNG law. That's basically the Deutschlandgeschwindigkeit. I'm trying actually to implement this as well in the hydrogen sector, and so this can be really. We hope that this will be really like then like a boost also for the ramp up of the European hydrogen structure, and financing has been mentioned earlier on. I mean, the idea is to have like a financing basically based on like traditional levies. For the consumers, so basically the consumers pay, but actually since in the beginning there will be rather few consumers and very expensive network. In the end, we hope it's the contrary. So we have actually defined what we call it like an amortization account, and therefore which is backed up by the state, and so we have actually basically a median a levy, which we hope in the beginning it will not cover all the costs. In the end, it will actually exceed the costs. So it should be, if our calculations or the calculation of the TSOs are correct, it should be a black zero at the end. And if that is not the case, then of course it's the state, it's us who steps in, and all of you actually, at least who are paying taxes, who step in and will back that up.
Thank you for this overview. This sheds a light on the challenges that lie ahead of us in terms of regulation. You mentioned that there's quite a bit of work ahead of us. I think the work has to be done in two areas. We need to finance the infrastructure, and we have to create a marketplace so that supply and demand can match each other. And I would like to ask Christine Haferkamp. She's CEO of the DENA, the forward-thinking element in our energy policies, what her view is. We just talked about the DENA model, and that's certainly something that could be also projected on the European market. What are your views on the regulation, financing the grid, creating a hydrogen market?
That's a rather complex question. I would like to focus on the aspect of financing the grid in the first place. As Philip has pointed out, it will not be possible to have private investments by the TSOs and by the off-takers guarantee financing of a backbone grid. It's absolutely excluded. So there will need to be public support. On the other hand side, it is clear that costs should not go too high, talking about the public budget, talking about taxpayers' money. So there will need to be a common effort, an effort on the side of the TSOs in terms of upfront investment as we see it, certain risk sharing also with own contributions. There will need to be European support. We talked about the CEF facility, of course, and there will need to be national funding. And if you put this together as a package and see the national part rather as a grantor, so as somebody taking over guarantees, than somebody doing the investments in CEF, I think you can make it rather affordable, hopefully, at least. And this is the idea behind the amortization account, which means that the state is backing up.
And that could be also a model that could be projected on the European level.
We have been looking into that as the German Energy Agency. It's a question of, for one, where would the funding come from? Of course, would it come from the European budget and going into all member states participating in the European network grid? But it's also a question of national regulations regarding, for example, on capital, these kind of rather important technicalities. Not easy.
Financing infrastructure is one part. The other part is facilitating trade. This morning I had orange juice for breakfast. It was organic orange juice coming from Spain. With orange juice, we have something that is possible. You can grow organic oranges in Spain and bring them to German supermarkets and market it here as organic orange juice. This is not yet possible with green hydrogen because we do not have a certificate of origin scheme in place. We need to develop things here as well. What is your take on that? Do you also have thoughts on bringing a market together there?
Well, actually, I think this would be a question that should be asked to Mechthild rather than to the German Energy Agency, but certain provisions are in place on the European level, which will have to be implemented by Germany. Right now, we already have a number of organizations that do issue certificates, but it's not a harmonized system. And in particular, there's no guarantee to exclude double counting. This is my understanding. The European Union has instituted a system by which first you have a certification of so-called voluntary schemes, and I'm aware of at least 3 organizations who have applied for such a certifications. They, in turn, will be able to certify certified bodies that then do the auditing. This is one side, making sure that green is really green in real life. The other side is making sure there's no double counting, and for this you need a national registry, which can be instituted for supply and demand, and there will also be a union data bank to make sure that not only within the member states, but within the European Union, there is no, let's say, not too much flexibility in this respect.
Mr. López, as a technology provider, you mentioned you're forming a new division within your company, Decarbon Technologies, with a bunch of different solutions for producing hydrogen. If you look at the global market, where do you see Europe being the leader, or what could Europe learn from other markets which you might be active in?
Well, first of all, I believe when looking to other regions, and I recall now, because that's something that we are helping with our electrolyzers from Nucera, Saudi Arabia, NEOM project, we are talking about, I think, a more determined action in order to step into the right direction, because this is about 3 gigawatts. So this is a real powerful renewable project, and by the way, it is also very important in order to get green hydrogen to not forget that we always need also the renewable energy behind it. So the 140,000 ton is equivalent with 510 windmills. Coming back to your question, I think the other regions are specifically when looking to Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, specifically, but Saudi Arabia, because the conditions there for renewable energy are much better, because they have wind, they have sun, and they can produce a lot of renewable energy in a very cheap way, and then already on site get the hydrogen done. So I think we need in Europe much more larger sizes of projects, much faster development of the renewable energy parks. There, of course, my home country is absolutely key, together with Portugal, because we have all the ingredients, but the speed of implementation needs to be much higher. The second element in terms of scarcity is, of course, where are the electrolyzer producers? Because our ramp up now is the big challenge, right? And at the same time, if you transport hydrogen, everybody knows here, you can transport as we do it here, but you need to transport also via conversion to ammonia and back from ammonia cracking to hydrogen. So where are the manufacturers of ammonia plants? So all these elements, I think, are not sized yet appropriately. We have huge markets, but there are significant lack of capacities out there. Renewable energy, electrolyzers and ammonia. Of course, in electrolyzer ammonia we can help, and we will, but there is this big challenge in order to cope with the overall demand.
Stefan, you mentioned in the area where you're mostly active, you have different supply routes for hydrogen. You're producing it yourself. We see the import terminals at the coast, and now we get a pipeline from Spain. How does this all fit together?
I think it fits perfectly together because, as always, there is no silver bullet, probably silver pellets. So we need many pieces to bring it together. Of course, we get a pipeline from Norway, probably ending up close to our backyard. But that's not, again, solving everything. So having an integrated approach and having also a possibility to connect Southern Europe and Northern Europe is absolutely intelligent and right. And I think it's also affordable, because a balanced integrated system will always be cheaper and more affordable and more stable. So the trilemma we talked about is better solved than having only regional solution. That doesn't mean this is the only solution. It's a mean to an end. And the end is being affordable. And maybe one last remark I would like to have as a regional player. We have a lot of issues about the acceptability with population that sees more and more infrastructure. We add up and stack up more and more renewables, more windmills, more pipelines, more power lines, more what you know. We're just building a 70-kilometer pipeline for the LNG import, and that's 700 landowners that we needed to convince to do that. Yeah? So we need also to find a model to get the acceptance of population that's sometimes a bit underestimated, and we need to balance that carefully.
Before I give the last word to Philipp Steinberg, I would like to ask the representatives of the private sector, very short and concise, which two priorities should our regulators work on in the next weeks and months to get the hydrogen market done?
The permits. And with this, I'm fine.
Okay, permits. Anything more? Acceleration of permits, probably.
I think also giving an advantage for someone helping a system relieving production. So if an electrolyzer helps to avoid build out of new overhead lines maybe, and helps to reduce the redispatch costs that are 4 billion euros every year in Germany, it should have an advantage from it. So there could be an intelligent regulation to reduce overall system cost and sharing a little bit of that with those who help to reduce system cost. That's a smart approach, costing no subsidies, nothing, but it's not happening at the moment.
How does that match with your priorities?
Perfectly, of course. I think we need three things. I mean, and that's the priorities of the government, and I believe also of the European Union. Of course, once again, we need the right regulatory framework conditions, and we are almost there. We are almost in at the end of the gas and hydrogen package. RED 3 will be there very soon. On the national level, we are actually updating our Energiewirtschaftsgesetz, so the regulatory framework conditions here. Second, it's infrastructure, of course. That's actually the main topic today. Here we need the right infrastructure, and in order to have the right infrastructure, we need the right, once again, regulatory conditions. It's a little bit egg and chicken, but we are trying actually to do it at the same time. And then third, I mean, we haven't talked a lot about like support schemes. I mean, because obviously, like, nobody knows how the market will look like, what the hydrogen price will be in 2030. We don't even know in which sectors hydrogen will be really used. We have an idea and some political opinions on that, but it's evident, and I mean, ThyssenKrupp is one of the first movers, kind of, that we need for a transitional period. Of course, not for always. We need the right support schemes. I've mentioned some of them, but I really think, and I'm very happy about that. I really think there's a broad, and that has been said today as well in the first panel. There's a broad consensus now that we need those elements in order to build this third pillar of our energy transition. And there used to be, at least in Germany, some of you might know that, it's like kind of an opposition between those who preferred only a purely electrical transformation, and the others were like rather, let's say, conventionalists in a way. And I think this is over, and now we have this consensus that we need to get going, and actually we have started to get going.
Also add 2 words regarding what is needed. And in addition to what has been mentioned, I think we need very close, trustful European cooperation. That's essential, and we also need public acceptance, and with this, transparency and communication on a permanent level.
I think we can conclude we have the right priorities in place. There's quite a bit of work ahead of us, both in public sector and regulation. And I think we have taken away quite a bit of inspiration that we could also feed into the process in Brussels. But in general terms, I think we are on the move, and we see clearly a developing market for hydrogen, so that the infrastructure certainly will have a good reason to be there. And with this, I think we can conclude, and I give it back to our facilitator. Thank you to our panelists. Give them the big hand.
Dear guests, we are nearing the end of our event and are looking forward to welcoming you for lunch upstairs. Thank you all for joining us today, and I now hand over to Dr. Arturo Gonzalo, CEO of Enagás, for his closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. Thank you, our authorities, again, Ambassador, for the hospitality and your support. Thank you, all the panelists, for, I think, having shared with us a very comprehensive and updated view of where is the hydrogen challenge standing, with a lot of things to be done, but with a lot of things already being in the making. I think this is a very important message. Imagine this meeting 1 year ago. We've done an incredible job during these last 12 months. Still, we have questions that have to be answered, but I think that the certitude of what's being done is beginning to take shape. And really, I think that we can see now how an European-wide effort is gaining traction, and how Europe, although we always say that Europe is too slow, but Europe, I think, is really being to give an answer to a terrible challenge that started almost 20 months ago with the invasion of Ukraine. Just make an inventory of what's being done by Europe during these not even 2 years. So I think this is not a message for comfort, but it's a message, I think, for optimism and for to continue working in this direction. I think today we have seen the very strong institutional and political support for this challenge. This is absolutely key. It's being expressed by the 4 governments, the European Commission, and everyone has agreed that this is going to be a joint effort, a public and private partnership, and being able to put the public and private resources working together is going to be key. Infrastructure, it's necessary to creating a market. I think this is a very important message, and this market has to be an European market. So every and any infrastructure initiatives have to be seen as part of a pan-European infrastructure, giving the support to a European hydrogen market. We have seen the support of the governments of Spain, very strong. Also, the government of Portugal and France, and the government of Germany. Secretary of State Brantner mentioned that we have to be able to connect all the dots to make a reality this joint effort. Also, the particularities of the position of each member state have to be taken into account in a challenge like this, and we have paid attention to the remarks by Ambassador Delattre, Ambassador Ricardo Martínez as well, Ambassador Ribeiro de Menezes. We've received a very important update from the European Commission by Deputy Director General Wörsdörfer, stating clearly that H2 is a priority for the European Commission. It's an integral part of REPowerEU challenge as a means of accelerating the energy transition as well. We have in front of us a key crossroads of the process, which is the PCI list. This is going to be extremely important for H2Med, for all the PCI candidates project, to become a priority for the European Union. And I've taken note, Mechthild, that after that, if we are lucky, money will flow. I think that's very important as well. We have to maintain our engagement with the regional groups to answer that question. What else can we do to accelerate this process? And we have to, dear colleagues from the TSOs, we have to continue doing this work to maintain this political momentum. I think this is very important. The EU is taking great steps forward, and we have to make good use of this momentum. So we went to the TSOs panel. I think that it's not very frequent that we have 5 TSOs presenting the result of an ongoing joint effort. This is going to become more and more normal in Europe, because this has to be also a joint effort, not only public-private, but among TSOs. We have to do joint things, because if we TSOs don't work together, a number of things will remain to be undone. So I think that this message is very important. Rodrigo mentioned the importance of hydrogen infrastructure to create that market, and the necessity of having on board regulators working closely with the rest actors in the value chain. And also Rodrigo stressed the importance of explaining better what are the challenges and opportunities. And this has also been a conclusion by Christina Haverkamp and by other panelists. Public acceptance is going to be key. And when these messages are not received in a positive way, afterwards it's very difficult to change the public sentiment. So it's very important to do things well from the beginning and to gain that public acceptance from the beginning. Dominique has stressed that this is starting point. I mean, these infra efforts are a starting point for Europe, but in themselves, these are transformational initiatives. When the consumers and producers see clearly that the infrastructure will be there, then everything changes for them. The way of thinking about the future, the way of planning, the way of aligning their efforts in a certain strategic direction. Thierry and afterwards Dominique as well have emphasized the importance of storage and the importance of a system. First a regional system, local regional system, then to become a pan-European system. Without a system, there won't be security of supply. This message is very important. We need the storage to be an integral part of that system for the benefit of security of supply. And Thierry also said that one of the main obstacles was solved yesterday. So it's been very timely that we are holding this event here today. What would have happened if not? We were very confident that Europe was going to reach an agreement because Europe always reaches an agreement, or almost always. So we are confident that this is also going to help us to move faster. Frank, thank you very much. For us, OGA is an absolute key actor. It's been stressed by all of us, by Thierry also in particular. And I think that Germany is also paving the way in a number of angles of this big challenge, regulation, financing, and we've had the privilege of listening firsthand to the German approaches to that by Dr. Steinberg, by Frau Haverkamp as well. I think this is very important because sharing best practices also in the regulatory arena is key for Europe, and I think we all can learn from having German actors on board. I also took note of the other TSOs explaining how things are beginning to happen and how the first FIDs are being taken already. This is becoming a reality at a great speed. So I think this message is also very important because sometimes it seems that we are not being able to deliver, and we are beginning to be able to deliver. And then we had the panel led by Dr. Kehler, Timm Kehler. Timm, thank you very much for a very well moderated panel and for your support. I would just highlight a few number of messages from your panel. I think it was very exciting to listen to Miguel Ángel López Borrego. Thank you, Miguel Ángel, also to Stefan Doller. And I would cherish this takeaway: demand is not an issue. I think this is very important to take note of that. Demand is not an issue if we are able to give confidence to the off-takers, to the consumers, that hydrogen is going to be there on time. For working together, I think it's very, very important for that. And also, Stefan, your comment that there has to be a sense of urgency. we are not too late, but we don't have 1 minute to lose. So that sense of urgency and trying to accelerate processes, permitting processes, decision-making processes is very important for all of us. Dr. Steinberg, I think your planning process to envisage the infrastructure needs of Germany connected to those of neighboring countries in the whole of Europe is absolutely key. This idea of a hydrogen acceleration law, I think, is also very, very interesting. And the instruments that we can be looking at to find answers, for instance, to matching supply and demand at European scale, such as H2 Global, I think that could be very interesting. And the importance of having a regulatory framework and a financing scheme together with infrastructure planning to make all of this work. And in that respect, this amortization account DINA model, I think, is very inspirational for all of us, for all of Europe. How to cover that initial, how to bridge that initial gap to start financing an infrastructure that will be fully paid back once the market is mature, but not just at these early stages. So I think that's a wonderful idea. Also the idea of how to warranty these investments at the beginning, sharing risks, but working together between TSOs, the European Commission, and national funding. Also looking for ways of make interchangeable the certificates of sustainability, proofs of sustainability within Europe. I think that's going to be very important. And the idea, I think this was mentioned by all the members of this second panel, that an intelligent regulation is key for competitiveness, because at the end of the day, Europe needs to maintain and grow its industrial strengths. So competitiveness is absolutely key. So I come to an end. I think we are, the 5 TSOs and those others that are working with us, we are learning a lot in this process. We understand, we know very well that other large projects are going to be necessary in Europe to reach those targets, and we are absolutely open to share our learnings with the other projects that are appearing to connect supply and demand of hydrogen in Europe. So open to all the colleagues that want to interact with us to look for those joint work and joint solutions. Thanks again. We will keep you posted in how this project develops, with the aim of being giving you feedback regularly to make you see that this is going to be a reality. Because really, hydrogen is now, el hidrógeno es ahora, Wasserstoff ist jetzt. Vielen Dank. Yeah.